The darkness fades away to reveal Sean Holt, a repulsive bald man. His shirt, encrusted with cat hair, Doritos, and bird feathers, reads, "That's what I do. I read books and I know things." Hi everyone, I'm Sean. So, a lot of times I talk about books off the top 1000 list by James Mustich, 1,000 Books to Read Before You Die. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is, there is this list of 1,000 books to read that I'm working on reading. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one and tell you whether or not I would recommend it and where I would rank it. So this is the way it's going to break down. S tier books are basically God tier. They are flawless masterpieces. I would recommend everyone in the world reads them. A tier is a very good book, but there may be a flaw in it that keeps it from being the best book ever, but I would still definitely recommend it. B tier books are books that are definitely good. They're worth reading, but I might forget about them in recommending them to people. They are still worth reading, but they're definitely not the best books ever. So each of those S, A, and B tier count as recommended. C tier basically means it was okay. It was not really good, not really bad, definitely not great, definitely not terrible. It was just okay. D tier, and there's going to be a lot of these. If a book is in D tier, that basically means it just wasn't for me. I may have tried to read it, maybe 50, 70 pages or so, and I just couldn't get into it. So although D tier may sound like it's bad, really it just means it did not work for me. I am a picky reader. You may enjoy it. Finally, there's E tier. E tier means I disliked the book for some reason and I likely rage quit. These books still make my skin crawl. Now, it's important to know these are just my ratings of the books. I am not rating it in terms of the historical importance of these books or what critics think of these books. I am ranking them only based on my personal opinions. And something that's important is I never want to discourage anyone from either writing a book or reading them. So I would really recommend that you read every book. You never know what you might enjoy. And because there are over 130 books, I do not have time to go through each one explaining why I rank it the way I do. I just have to fly through these. So if you want to talk about any of these books, I'll be happy to if I can in the comments. But let's get on with it. Desert Solitaire by Edward Abbey and Flatland by Edwin A. Abbott. These just go into C tier. Things Fall Apart by, I'll probably butcher this name, but Chinua Achebe? That one just goes into D tier. My Dog Tulip by J.R. Ackerley. I'm undecided about this one, but I'm going to say C tier. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is our first E tier. I just could not get into that book. I just thought it was stupid and it didn't work for me at all. Watership Down by Richard Adams just goes into C tier. The Orestia by Aeschylus and Let Us Now Praise Famous Men by James Agee. These go into D tier. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? A play by Edward Albee. That just goes into C tier. Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is another one that goes straight into E tier. I just could not read that book when the first page has like 7 mentions of the word little. Nope, I'm not reading that. So that goes into E tier. The Book of Three by Lloyd Alexander. I review this in one of my drunk book review videos, so look for that in the description. I put this one in D tier. It was just so highly derivative of Lord of the Rings. The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, which I actually have a signed copy of, which is really sweet. This one goes into A tier. It was just a really good story. It was enjoyable, it was pretty funny, and yeah, I definitely recommend it. The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende and A Coffin for Demetrios by Eric Ambler. These go into D tier. I did read another book by Eric Ambler that I kind of enjoyed, but it was not A Coffin for Demetrios, so D tier. The next one is Tales from the Arabian Nights. This one I'm going to put in B tier. The Clouds by Aristophanes and Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood. D tier. Emma by Jane Austen. This one is actually going to get C tier. I thought Emma was the most enjoyable of Jane Austen's books. Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. D tier. Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. The Birthday Boys by Beryl Bainbridge. Collected Essays by James Baldwin. And Flaubert's Parrot by Julian Barnes. These all go into D tier. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. This one goes into A tier. Beowulf. C tier. Okay, also on the top 1000 list, there is the Bible and the Book of Job, which is listed separately for some reason. I don't know why. As well as the Quran and Tao Te Ching, which is a kind of Chinese philosophy religion about Taoism. These books, these kind of religious texts, I'm actually not going to rate. And the reason I'm not rating it is because I don't want to either encourage or discourage people in terms of religion. I think that is your own business. So whether you want to read these books or not, that is your choice. So I don't think anyone should be pressured into reading them or dissuaded from reading them. So the Bible, the Book of Job, the Quran, and Tao Te Ching, I am not going to recommend yes or no. Friday Night Lights by H.G. Bissinger. This one I'm just going to put in C tier. The Sheltering Sky by Paul Bowles and The Ascent of Rum Doodle by W.E. Bowman. These go into D tier. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I know it's a very beloved book, but I just don't really remember liking Fahrenheit 451, so it goes into C tier. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. The 39 Steps by John Buchanan. These all go into D tier. The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. This one I am going to put in A tier. The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. I do kind of like Russian writers, but I just couldn't get into that book, so D tier. Reflections on the Revolution in France by Edmund Burke. This one I put into C tier. It's just not really all that worth reading, I think, unless you're into history. The Anatomy of Melancholy by Robert Burton. Possession by A.S. Byatt. Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. And True History of the Kelly Gang by Peter Carey. These all go into D tier. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This one I'm going to put in A tier. And the sequel, Through the Looking Glass, that one goes into D tier. O Pioneers by Willa Cather and the Poems of Catullus by Gaius Valerius Catullus. That's an awesome name. Gaius Valerius Catullus. Valerius is the best name ever. But that goes into D tier. Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. I put that one into C tier. The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. And The Stories of John Cheever by John Cheever. D tier. The Cherry Orchard by Anton Chekhov and Stories by Anton Chekhov. I did not like The Cherry Orchard at all, so that goes into D tier. Stories, there were a couple I liked, especially Ward number 6, I think it was called. That one I think would go into C tier. The Hunt for Red October by Tom Clancy. At long last, we have our first S tier. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I'm reluctant about this one. I'm going to say C tier. The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. And The Hours by Michael Cunningham. These all go into D tier. Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. E tier. My problem with Robinson Crusoe, one, it had, I guess, phonetic spelling, so everything was misspelled. But the bigger thing was the sentence length. I swear the first 5 sentences, the lengths were like 50 words, 70 words, 120 words, 175 words, 250 word sentences to start the book. When I saw that, I was just like, nope. The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wow by Junot Diaz. D tier. David Copperfield, the first book I read by Charles Dickens. E tier. This was just such a freaking boring book, and it was so long-winded and wordy, and oh, I just hated it. Ragtime by E.L. Doctorow. This one I have to put in D tier. Sister Carrie by Theodore Dreiser, and The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. This goes into C tier. The Book of Ebenezer LePage by G.B. Edwards. The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. D tier. From Russia with Love by Ian Fleming. I just didn't really like it, so I'm gonna say C tier. Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. The Good Soldier by Ford Madox Ford. Independence Day by Richard Ford. D tier. The Day of the Jackal by Frederick Forsyth. It had some potential, so I'm gonna say C tier. The French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles. Foles? D tier. The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. This is another one I'm going to leave unrated or unranked. Flashman by George MacDonald Fraser. I review this book in my 3 by Fraser video, so look for that in the description. I have to put this one in E tier. A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. I think that story is about a guy who is awaiting his execution, and I just do not like that at all. I do not support the death penalty for any reason. So I just don't want anything to do with books like that. So because of that, I put it in D tier. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I gotta put these in D tier. The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. A tier. Not the best book in the world, but still definite recommended read. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. A Farewell to Arms and The Old Man in the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. An Infamous Army by Georgette Heyer. Goodbye, Mr. Chips by James Hilton. Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House by Eric Hodgins. Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. And Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. All of those go into D tier. Hey everyone, I just wanted to say this video is too long, so I have to break it into multiple parts. So look for part 2. Thanks for watching. Bye.